Yes, my people, good day. This is a 2020 Ford Transit with a 3.5. It's a non-turbo engine. It has 110,000 miles. Engine went bad, just locked up. So we are going to be putting the engine in. I already got the engine out. A lot of people have never seen how an engine gets put back in, especially on such a technical vehicle as this one. So I thought I might do a time lapse just to show you what the process is to put this engine back in. So this is what it looks like, so remember that. And this is where the engine is, way out here. So I'm going to take you along on the journey and show you all the different steps and processes and frustrations and attempts and tries and all these different things to try to put it in. So step one, we pick up the engine and hoist it over that front piece. It doesn't, it looks like it's bolted in, but that cross member, they also weld it in. They weld it in and bolt it in. Why? I can't figure it, but I digress. So right now I'm just sizing up everything, just looking to see what is in the way. This strap that I have on the front here, and I hook it to the crank pulley, I use it to tilt the engine, like tilt it back, make it more level, because when you're putting an engine in, you need the capability of being able to tilt it forward. I don't know if it's forward or backward, but you see how I'm tilting it there. So tilt the front up, which in the back it'll make the back point down, and then you have to be able to twist it from the left to the right. So in other words, you're clocking it, you're rotating it to the left to the right, because sometimes it's not perfect. Now, because the engine is under this cowl panel, I cannot use the engine hoist attachment that I usually use. They call it a leveler, load leveler, because it's too tall, it'll be hitting. So I had to use a strap across the motor mounts from left to right and just use it old school style and just suspend it like that, which makes it more challenging when it is time to try to shift it to the left a little bit or shift it to the right a little bit. So that's why I am fighting like I'm fighting here. It is just what it is. Sometimes you just have to work with it. So I'm constantly looking, constantly readjusting. I am pushing back just to see what is in the way. Now, you have to make sure that you're not pinching any harnesses between the engine and the transmission, because it's very easy to pinch a oxygen sensor wire, or the engine harness. It's difficult to see back there, so you have to keep on feeling, making sure that nothing is getting pinched, because you could bolt the engine up and pinch a harness in there, and as you hook the battery up, it pops a fuse and you're wondering what's going on. It takes a while for you to figure it. So here I am working the yellow strap, and I'm tilting the front of the engine up, which would cause the back of the engine to point down in trying to line up with the transmission that's back there. So many things that I'm lining up. I am lining up the bell housing bolts, and I'm lining up the torque converter bolts to slip through the flex plate. Many moving pieces. So when I'm looking here now, I am seeing that no matter how much I'm wiggling it, no matter how much I'm trying, some of the holes just are not lining up. I'm close, but I am not there yet. So I'm taking a little break, send a text message, just look to see what's going on. And well, I wasn't on social media. Somebody texted me about a job, so I just responded, took a little mental break to see what was going on there. You need it. When you're putting engines like this in, you get mentally frustrated. You're wondering what's going on. It's not slipping back in. You can't force it. You have to just keep on inching and inching and inching and trying this and trying that and trying this, because what's going on is there is something you are not seeing at first glance. And the only way to overcome this is to keep trying, keep looking, keep paying attention, and then you'll start seeing stuff. You'll be like, oh, why is this bolt not lining up? And then you grab the engine and you kind of twist it, and then you see it kind of want to line up, but you can't keep it in that position. So now that confirms to you that, oh, the engine needs to be rotated to the left or rotated to the right, or the front of the engine needs to be tilted up, or the front of the engine needs to be, you understand what I mean? So here I am with the alignment bar. They call them ladies' feet, and I am trying to go through one of those bell housing bolts just to see what it will take to be able to get a bolt through there. Because if you can get one bolt started, it will make it easier because you can pivot the engine on that one boat that has been started. But to get to that point, you have to be patient because it doesn't just come like that. So now I am starting to realize that it's not going to go in just like this the way I have it, right? And then while putting it in, there is a shim plate between the bell housing and the engine. It's suspended on the engine. It's not bolted into place. It gets sandwiched in between the engine and the transmission. And every time I'm pushing it back, if I'm too forceful with it, it falls out of place. So I have to reach back there and just, blindly get it lined back up. So that too is another thing that is falling off when I'm trying to get it. It comes with the territory. So I'm just showing you all of the different attempts and tries and all that. Now, this is my first time doing one of these engines. So, there's a lot. So now I am going to rotate the engine. So I just support it with that giant jack stand. And they see I shift the thing. And then that causes the engine to rotate a little bit to the left. So I try that step and see if it gets me a bit closer to the bolt holes. So I'm looking back there, making sure that nothing is being pinched. There's a oxygen sensor right back there. Oh, and I forgot, while I am putting it back there too, I'm also aligning the exhaust studs because the exhaust manifolds are bolted to the engine, because when you put the engine in, you can hardly get back there. You don't want to be forcing, trying to tighten up an exhaust manifold with the engine in the engine bay. So we have we have 6 bolts, 3 on each side, and we have the torque converter bolts, and we have the bell housing bolts. All of these being lined up all at once. So there you see me shift it one more time. When I pick up, you see the engine rotate. So that's what I'm going for, a rotation, to see if I can get one of these bolts lined up. And the key ingredient to this job process right here is try, and keep trying. It's not easy. It's not just straightforward and it gets put in. It takes time. So I'm down, I'm looking, I'm peeking to see what it looks like there, because what happens is sometimes you're putting the engines in, you feel the engine touch up against the transmission and you think that you're flush, but when you look, you realize that maybe the top of the bell housing where it touches the transmission is getting flush, but the lower part is wide open. So that's saying that the engine is tilted too much. So you have to just level it out some. So therefore, when it touches, it goes up more flush. The top and the base touches. And then also from the left side to the right side, one side isn't touching while the next side is wide open. That's also important. So I'm constantly looking at that, constantly looking at the exhaust studs, constantly making sure that the torque converter studs are protruding through the holes in the flex plate. It's a lot of moving pieces. So I'm getting there though. One step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. So now, before I can do any motor mounts or anything, just a side note, before you can put any motor mounts on, you have to make sure that the engine and the transmission are together. And I just did that. I put the engine and the transmission together, so now it's time to put the motor mounts on. So I'm good. So that's why you see me now jack the whole engine up, because the engine and the transmission are now bolted together. Not all the way. I put one bolt on one side, one bolt on the next side, kind of snug it up. So now I know that I'm in the right spot and everything is looking good. The exhaust studs are lined up, the torque converter studs are lined up and everything. So I'm just doing the motor mounts now. So you see, I do the motor mount and I'm dropping the engine down. But the motor mount on the driver's side, the stud's so long, I had to rotate the engine. So I shifted and there it goes. I put the stud through, there it goes. So now I'm making progress. It is finally in. Not all the way in, but in. I'm so happy, so thankful, because, shoo, what? Let me tell you, this is, not my favorite thing to do, but it is one of the things you have to do from time to time. So me, knowing me, I'm always using some anti-seize. I'm never putting bolts back in dry thread onto dry thread, especially on places where, these bolts don't get pulled very often. No plans to pull this thing back out anytime soon, but I always put anti-seize on threads when I'm putting them back in. you know, this is for the next technician down the road who will have to probably do this again or change a motor mount or something. It's not going to be seized when they get to work on it. It's going to have some anti-seize on there, and I moved the engine hoist, and I'm now undoing the strap from the driver's side. So at this point now, I am going to raise the vehicle because I have it on the hoist. So that's important, because under the base of the transmission, when I took the engine out, there's nothing to support the transmission. So there is a jack stand under the bell housing holding the transmission up, and then I'd put a hoist on the front there. The engine is in. So now torque converter bolts. Now is the time, well, slightly before this, when the studs protrude through the flex plate, you grab onto the studs. When the engine and the transmission is now together, you grab the studs and you're supposed to be able to go clunk, 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 clunk with the studs. If you grab the stud and you can't move it up and down, that's the torque converter stud. If you can't do clunk, 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 clunk with it, you may have a problem. The torque converter may not have been put in all the way in. So the way I do it is I make sure that when it's together, I can do clunk, 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 clunk with it. You'll hear it, and then I'll tighten it up. If it's too tight, you can't move it at all, you have to take the engine back out, reset the torque converter, and go again. But no, I already double checked that it's doing the clunk, 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 clunk. So the torque converter bolts, the rest of the bell housing bolts, the starter, ground straps, fuel lines, oxygen sensor plugs in, coolant hoses and lines, oil filter, make sure you put oil back in it before you start it, intake manifold, put the whole nose back on, that type of stuff. So the engine is in now, so the engine is back in. Now it's just plugging stuff and bolting stuff back up. This was a very difficult part right here. So just wanted to show you that, how it's done. A lot of people may have never seen it, so now you see it and you know what it is. I'm time-lapsing this to make it go fast, but it's probably about, just to get it in, me personally, the first time doing one of these, it's about an hour. It was a little bit tricky, but it was about an hour. So yeah man, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.